The Council of Stars had seen many things in their thousand-year reign over the galaxy. They had witnessed the rise and fall of civilizations, the birth and death of entire species, and wars that consumed solar systems. But nothing had prepared them for the day when Zephyros the Destroyer walked into their sacred chambers. Zephyros was a legend among the stars. His species, the Kethmori, were known as the galaxy's apex predators. Standing 12 feet tall with obsidian-black exoskeletons that could deflect plasma fire, razor-sharp claws capable of tearing through starship hulls, and 4 piercing red eyes that could see across multiple spectrums, they were evolution's perfect killing machines. Zephyros himself had single-handedly conquered 47 star systems, enslaved dozens of species, and his name was whispered in fear across 100 worlds. The council chambers fell silent as his massive form entered. Even the most powerful beings in the galaxy, the ethereal lumina with their energy bodies, the technologically advanced cerebrites with their enhanced minds, the warlike Draknari with their battle-hardened shells, all stepped back instinctively. The air itself seemed to grow heavy with menace. Council of Stars, Zephyros spoke, his voice a deep rumble that resonated through the chamber walls. I come before you not as a conqueror, not as an enemy, but as one who brings a warning. High Chancellor Viridian, an ancient Lumina whose energy form flickered with nervousness, floated forward. Zephyros the Destroyer seeks audience with us? This is unprecedented. What warning could you possibly bring that we would heed? Zephyros fixed his 4 red eyes on the Chancellor. There is a species that has recently achieved faster-than-light travel. A young race from the 3rd planet of an unremarkable yellow star on the galaxy's outer rim. They call themselves humans. A ripple of confusion passed through the assembly. The Draknari warchief Thrakus stepped forward, his massive frame bristling with weapons. Humans? We have never heard of this species. If they are so insignificant that we do not know them, why do you waste our time? Because, Zephyros replied, they are the most dangerous species I have ever encountered. The chamber erupted in disbelief. Species representatives began talking among themselves, some laughing, others expressing confusion. The idea that the dreaded Zephyros, who had never shown fear of anything, would warn them about an unknown species seemed absurd. Impossible, declared Prime Intellect Corinth of the Cerebrites, his enlarged brain pulsing with electrical activity. Our databases contain information on all species capable of interstellar travel. No species called humans exists in our records. That is because they achieved faster-than-light travel only recently, Zephyros explained. But I have studied them. I have observed their homeworld. I have watched their history unfold across millennia. And, I tell you now, do not hunt them. Do not enslave them. Do not attack them. Leave them alone. High Chancellor Viridian's energy form brightened with interest. You speak as if you fear them. The great Zephyros, afraid of primitives who have barely left their solar system? I do not fear them, Zephyros said slowly, his claws scraping against the metal floor. I respect them. There is a difference. Fear is what you should feel if you ignore my warning. Warchief Thrakus laughed, a sound like grinding metal. The mighty destroyer has grown soft. What could these humans possibly possess that would concern us? Do they have superior technology? Larger fleets? More powerful weapons? No, Zephyros replied. They have something far more dangerous. They have the soul of predators wrapped in the minds of builders. They have the hearts of warriors beating inside the chests of creators. They are, in short, exactly what I am, but they learn to work together. The confusion in the chamber deepened. Ambassador Silthan of the peaceful Verdani spoke up, her plant-like form rustling with concern. We do not understand. If they are like you, why warn us? Are you not the strongest being in the galaxy? Zephyros was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice carried a weight that made even the bravest warriors in the chamber uncomfortable. Let me tell you what I have seen on the human homeworld they call Earth. He activated a holographic projector, and images began to fill the air above the assembly. The first showed vast cities with gleaming towers reaching toward the sky. They build, he said. Like the Cerebrites, they create technologies that border on miraculous. But, unlike the Cerebrites, who build for efficiency and logic, humans build for dreams. They construct monuments that serve no purpose except to inspire. They create art that moves the soul. They compose music that can make warriors weep. The images shifted to show massive industrial complexes, sprawling farms, and networks of transportation. They organize, he continued. Like the hive mind collective, they work together toward common goals. But, unlike the collective, who sacrifice individuality for unity, humans maintain their individual spirits while choosing to cooperate. Each one thinks differently, yet somehow they manage to work as one when it matters. New images appeared: laboratories, universities, space centers. They learn, Zephyros said. Like the Lumina, they seek knowledge and understanding. But, while the Lumina study the universe to contemplate its beauty, humans study it to change it. They look at impossible problems and refuse to accept that they are impossible. The hologram showed scenes of conflict, armies clashing, cities under siege, weapons of incredible destructive power being unleashed. And they fight, Zephyros's voice dropped to almost a whisper. Like the Draknari, they wage war with skill and brutality. But, where the Draknari fight for honor and conquest, humans fight for ideas. They will die for concepts that exist only in their minds. They will sacrifice everything for principles that cannot be touched or seen. Warchief Thrakus snorted. All species fight. What makes humans special? The hologram changed to show a massive stone wall stretching across mountains and valleys. This is the Great Wall of China, Zephyros explained. Humans built this over the course of centuries to protect their territory. It stretches for thousands of miles. But, here is what makes it remarkable: it was built not by slaves, not by mind-controlled workers, not by automated machines. It was built by humans who chose to spend their entire lives moving stones, knowing they would never see it completed, because they believed their children's children would be safer. More images flowed: hospitals, schools, relief efforts during disasters. They care for their weak instead of abandoning them. They spend vast resources to save individual lives. They risk their own safety to help strangers. But, do not mistake this for weakness. The images shifted to show scenes of devastating warfare: atomic explosions, mechanized armies, aerial bombardments. They have fought 2 global wars that consumed their entire planet. In their most recent great conflict, they developed weapons capable of destroying their own world. And, when they realized what they had created, instead of using these weapons to conquer, they used them to maintain peace. Prime Intellect Corinth processed this information. Fascinating. They achieved mutually assured destruction and used it as a diplomatic tool rather than a weapon of conquest. Most species either destroy themselves at this point or become entirely pacifist. What did humans do? They reached for the stars, Zephyros replied. They looked at their homeworld, saw that it was not enough, and decided to claim the universe. The hologram showed rockets launching, space stations being constructed, and, finally, faster-than-light vessels taking their first journeys beyond their solar system. But, this still does not explain why you fear them, Ambassador Silthan said. Many species have these qualities in some measure. Zephyros deactivated the hologram and looked directly at each member of the council. Because I have seen what happens when humans are cornered. I have studied their history, and I have learned that every time someone tried to destroy them, they came back stronger. He gestured to the air, and new images appeared: ancient armies being defeated by smaller forces, invasions being repelled, underdogs achieving impossible victories. When the Mongols, their greatest conquerors, seemed unstoppable, human resistance movements learned their tactics and eventually drove them back. When their cities were bombed from the air in their great wars, they built underground and emerged stronger. When diseases threatened to wipe them out, they created medicines that made them immune. When they are attacked, Zephyros continued, they do not just defend. They adapt. They learn. They become stronger than whatever attacked them. And, then, they make sure it never happens again. High Chancellor Viridian's energy form pulsed thoughtfully. You speak of them as if they are already a threat. But, they have just achieved interstellar travel. Surely their technology is primitive compared to ours? Their technology is advancing exponentially, Zephyros replied. I have been watching them for 50 Earth years. In that time, they have gone from primitive computers that filled entire rooms to devices that fit in their hands and possess more computational power than most species' central archives. He paused to let that sink in. But technology is not what makes them dangerous. What makes them dangerous is how they think. Explain, demanded Prime Intellect Corinth. Every other species in the galaxy accepts limitations, Zephyros said. The Lumina accept that matter cannot be created or destroyed. The Cerebrites accept that consciousness cannot exist without a physical substrate. The Draknari accept that the strong must rule the weak. The Verdani accept that growth requires time. Humans accept nothing. The chamber was completely silent now. They look at the speed of light and call it a suggestion. They examine death itself and work to cure it like a disease. They study black holes not to avoid them, but to harness their power. They do not see obstacles, they see puzzles to be solved. Zephyros began pacing, his massive claws clicking against the floor. I have watched their children play games where they stack blocks impossibly high, just to see how high they can go before they fall. I have seen their engineers design machines that should not work according to physics, then build them anyway and make them work. I have observed their philosophers argue that reality itself might be negotiable. Most telling of all, he continued, I have seen them take their own limitations and turn them into strengths. They cannot see in the dark, so they create light that shines brighter than stars. They cannot breathe underwater, so they build vessels that let them live beneath the waves. They cannot fly, so they construct machines that soar higher than any natural creature. Warchief Thrakus was beginning to look thoughtful rather than dismissive. You make them sound like creators rather than destroyers. Why should warriors fear builders? Zephyros turned to face him directly. Because they are not just builders. They are builders who fight, and fighters who build. Watch. The hologram activated again, showing scenes of human military engineering, massive ships that could level continents, weapons that could crack planets, defensive systems that could withstand the fury of stars. This is what they built for war, Zephyros said. But see how they think about war itself. The images shifted to show elaborate strategies, complex logistics networks, and coordination between forces spanning entire continents. They do not just fight, they orchestrate. They turn war itself into a science. They study their enemies not just to defeat them, but to understand them completely. And, once they understand something, they master it. Prime Intellect Corinth's brain pulsed rapidly. Are you suggesting they could master us? I am telling you they will master anything that threatens them, Zephyros replied. And, mastery, for humans, means not just defeating a threat, but ensuring it can never threaten them again. High Chancellor Viridian floated closer. Zephyros, we appreciate your concern. But, surely you overestimate them. They are one species on one world. We are thousands of species across millions of worlds. Zephyros looked at the Chancellor with an expression that might have been pity. That is exactly what every predator thinks before humans hunt it to extinction. The silence that followed was deafening. Let me tell you, Zephyros said slowly, about the wolves. The hologram showed Earth's forests, with packs of large, powerful canines moving through the trees. These creatures were the apex predators of Earth's forests. Stronger than humans, faster than humans, better hunters than humans. For thousands of years, they ruled the wilderness while humans cowered behind fires and walls. The images shifted to show humans with primitive weapons, then, gradually more advanced ones. But, humans studied them. Learned their patterns. Understood their behavior. And, then, humans did something no other species has ever done, they convinced some wolves to join them. The hologram now showed domesticated dogs working alongside humans. They turned their enemies into allies. But, they did not stop there. The images changed to show vast cities where no wolves could be seen. They reshaped the entire planet. They eliminated the wolves' hunting grounds, divided their territory, reduced their food sources. They did not hunt the wolves to extinction through direct conflict, they simply made a world where wolves could not exist in large numbers. Zephyros gestured, and the hologram expanded to show orbital views of Earth. And, now, when humans want to see wolves, they keep them in parks designed specifically for that purpose. The wolves still exist, but only because humans allow them to exist, in places humans choose, under conditions humans control. The implication hung heavy in the air. This is what humans do, Zephyros continued. They do not just defeat their enemies. They transform the entire environment until their enemies cannot threaten them. And they do it so gradually, so systematically, that most species do not realize what is happening until it is far too late. Ambassador Silthan's plant-like form was trembling slightly. But, surely this takes centuries. It takes as long as it takes, Zephyros replied. Humans think in generations. They make plans that will not be completed in their lifetimes. They plant seeds they will never see grow into trees. And they teach their children to continue projects that their grandparents began. Warchief Throckus stepped forward, his battle-scarred face serious now. Even if what you say is true, we are not wolves. We have technology, intelligence, fleets that span the galaxy. Yes, Zephyros agreed. And that will make it worse for you. The confusion returned to the chamber. Prime Intellect Corinth spoke up. How could our advantages make our situation worse? Because humans learn fastest from the most complex challenges, Zephyros explained. The more sophisticated their enemy, the more they evolve to meet that challenge. Show them a wooden club, and they will invent a bronze sword. Show them a bronze sword, and they will create steel. Show them steel, and they will develop firearms. Show them firearms, and they will build guided missiles. He paused, letting his words sink in. Show them a galactic civilization with advanced technology, vast fleets, and thousands of species working in coordination. Zephyros's four eyes gleamed in the chamber's light. And they will become something that can dominate all of it. The truth was beginning to dawn on the assembled representatives. High Chancellor Viridian's energy form flickered rapidly. You are saying that contact with us would make them stronger? Contact with you will make them everything you are, plus everything they already are, plus things neither you nor they have imagined yet, Zephyros confirmed. And they will do it in a fraction of the time it took you to develop these capabilities. But we could destroy them before they reach that point, Warchief Throckus suggested, though his voice lacked its earlier confidence. Zephyros turned to look at him with what might have been amusement. With what? Nuclear weapons? They have those, and they are better at making them than you are. Biological weapons? They have survived plagues that killed half their population and came back stronger. Conventional warfare? They wrote the manual on it. Kinetic bombardment from orbit? They have already calculated the trajectories and developed countermeasures. Cyber warfare? They invented it. Economic manipulation? They have been doing it to each other for thousands of years. The warchief's claws scraped nervously against his armor. Then, how do we defend ourselves? You do not attack them in the first place. Prime Intellect Corinth processed this information. But, surely, if we united all our species against them, then, you would teach them that the galaxy operates as a confederation of different species with different capabilities, and they would learn to replicate, improve upon, and coordinate all of those capabilities under a single command structure, Zephyros replied. Congratulations! You would have created the most dangerous force the galaxy has ever seen. Ambassador Silthan's voice was barely a whisper. Then, what do you suggest? Zephyros looked around the chamber at each of the representatives. Leave them alone. Do not contact them. Do not probe their systems. Do not abduct their people for study. Do not interfere with their development. And, most importantly, do not hunt them. But, they will eventually contact us, High Chancellor Viridian pointed out. Their expansion will bring them into contact with our territories. Then, you negotiate, Zephyros said simply. You trade. You cooperate. You make them your allies instead of your enemies. Because the only thing more dangerous than humans who consider you a threat is humans who are bored and looking for a new challenge. Warchief Fracas was still struggling with the concept. I cannot believe that a single species could threaten the entire galactic order. Zephyros walked to the center of the chamber and activated one final hologram. This one showed a blue and green planet hanging in the darkness of space. Look at their world, he said. One planet. Not particularly large, not particularly rich in resources, not particularly well placed strategically. For billions of years, it was unremarkable. The image zoomed in to show the planet's surface, teeming with life. Then, humans evolved. In the span of just 200,000 years, a blink of an eye in galactic terms, they went from using stone tools to splitting atoms. In just the last 100 years, they have gone from not being able to fly to landing on their moon to achieving faster-than-light travel. But, more than that, Zephyros continued, look what they did to their own world. The hologram showed cities, farms, roads, dams, and countless other human constructions covering the planet's surface. They reshaped an entire world to suit their needs. They redirected rivers, moved mountains, turned deserts into gardens, and gardens into deserts. They filled the skies with their machines and the oceans with their vessels. They made their planet into exactly what they wanted it to be. The image pulled back to show space around Earth, filled with satellites, space stations, and ships. And, when their planet was not enough, they reached beyond it. This is what humans do to everything they encounter. They study it, understand it, master it, improve it, and, then, use it to reach for something even greater. Zephyros deactivated the hologram and faced the council. I have conquered 47 star systems. I have enslaved dozens of species. I have fought every type of warrior the galaxy has to offer. And, I am telling you now, do not make humans your enemy. Because? High Chancellor Viridian asked, though her energy form suggested she already knew the answer. Because they will win. The chamber fell into absolute silence. The weight of Zephyros's words settled over the assembly like a heavy blanket. These were beings who had ruled the galaxy for 1,000 years, who commanded fleets that could destroy star systems, who possessed technologies that seemed like magic to younger species. And, they were being warned by the most feared predator in the galaxy to avoid a species that had barely left its home system. Prime Intellect Corinth was the first to break the silence. How can you be so certain? You speak as if their victory is inevitable. Zephyros's four eyes fixed on the Cerebrite. Because I have seen their movies. The confusion returned instantly. Ambassador Sylphan spoke up. Their movies? Their entertainment, Zephyros explained. The stories they tell themselves for fun. Do you know what humans do when they want to relax and enjoy themselves? Without waiting for an answer, he continued. They create fictional scenarios in which their entire species is under threat of extinction, and, then, they imagine how they would fight back and win. The hologram activated again, showing scenes from human cinema, alien invasions being repelled, robot uprisings being crushed, cosmic threats being overcome. For entertainment, they dream up enemies with technology far superior to their own, overwhelming numbers, and every possible advantage. And, then, they imagine beating them anyway. They make movies about fighting alien invasions, robot rebellions, cosmic entities, time travelers, other versions of themselves from parallel dimensions, and gods. And, in every single story, humans find a way to win. Warchief Fracas stared at the images. But, these are just fantasies. No, Zephyros replied. These are training exercises. They are preparing themselves for every possible threat by imagining how to defeat it. They are rehearsing victory against impossible odds. The images shifted to show more human entertainment, video games where players fought against overwhelming forces, books describing desperate last stands that turned into triumphant victories, and songs celebrating the defeat of superior enemies. This is what humans think about when they want to have fun, Zephyros said. Winning impossible wars. Overcoming unstoppable foes. Achieving the unachievable. He deactivated the hologram and looked around the chamber. Most species create entertainment about avoiding conflict, finding peace, or accepting their place in the universe. Humans create entertainment about refusing to accept defeat even when defeat is certain. And here is what should terrify you, Zephyros continued. Their fictional strategies work. I have studied their entertainment and compared it to their real history. When humans face real threats, they often use tactics that first appeared in their stories. The assembly was beginning to understand the true scope of what they were dealing with. Prime Intellect Corintha's brain pulsed rapidly as he processed this information. You're suggesting that they have culturally evolved to view overwhelming opposition as a form of entertainment? I am stating it as fact, Zephyros replied. The worse their odds, the more determined they become. The more powerful their enemy, the more creative their solutions. The closer they come to extinction, the more dangerous they become. High Chancellor Viridian's energy form was dim with worry. But surely they must have some weaknesses we could exploit? Zephyros was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice carried a note of something that might have been respect. Their greatest strength is also their greatest weakness, he said finally. They care about each other. Explain, demanded Warchief Thrakus. Humans will sacrifice everything, their resources, their advantages, their strategic positions, even their lives, to protect other humans. Especially humans they care about. This makes them predictable in some ways. The hologram showed scenes of human rescue operations, people risking their lives to save strangers, resources being diverted to help the wounded, and military operations being compromised to minimize casualties. But, Zephyros continued, it also makes them impossible to defeat. How so? Ambassador Silthan asked. Because any attack on humans becomes an attack on all humans, Zephyros explained. They do not see themselves as individuals who happen to be the same species. They see themselves as part of something larger. Attack one human settlement, and you are at war with all of humanity. Many species have strong social bonds, Prime Intellect Corinth pointed out. Not like this, Zephyros replied. Most species will sacrifice some members to save others. Humans will sacrifice everything to save anyone. I have seen them risk their entire civilization to rescue a single person who was captured by enemies. The hologram showed historical examples, massive military operations launched to recover small numbers of prisoners, international incidents sparked by attacks on single individuals, and resources spent on hopeless rescue missions. They have a saying, Zephyros continued. No one gets left behind. They mean it literally. They would rather lose a war than abandon their own people. Then, we could use that against them, Warchief Thrakus suggested. Take hostages, force them to surrender. Zephyros looked at him with an expression that might have been pity. You still do not understand. If you take human hostages, you will not force them to surrender. You will force them to find a way to rescue their people and destroy you at the same time. And they will succeed. The certainty in his voice was absolute. How can you be so sure? High Chancellor Viridian asked. Because I tried it. The chamber fell silent again. This was the first time Zephyros had admitted to personal contact with humans. You encountered them? Prime Intellect Corinth asked. I was expanding my territory into their space before I realized what they were, Zephyros said slowly. I captured some of their explorers. I thought I could use them to force their species to surrender. What happened? Zephyros was quiet for a long moment. They came for them. The hologram activated, showing space battle scenes, massive fleets clashing in the void, weapons firing across impossible distances, ships being destroyed and rebuilt in the heat of battle. I had a fleet of 500 ships, each one larger and more powerful than anything humans had built. They came for their people with 73 ships that should not have been able to threaten a single one of mine. And they destroyed my entire fleet and rescued their people without losing a single ship. The silence that followed was profound. Zephyros the Destroyer, who had never been defeated in battle, who had conquered star systems with minimal losses, had been completely outmaneuvered by humans using inferior technology. How? Warchief Fracas asked, his voice barely above a whisper. They did not fight the way I expected, Zephyros replied. They did not try to match my firepower or outnumber my ships. Instead, they studied my tactics, analyzed my weaknesses, and created a strategy that turned my strengths against me. The hologram showed the battle from multiple angles, human ships moving in patterns that seemed random but were clearly coordinated, weapons being fired not at enemy ships but at specific points in space, and defensive formations that absorbed massive amounts of damage while protecting key assets. They used my own fleet's size against me, Zephyros explained. They made me fire on my own ships. They turned my formation into a trap that I had built around myself. They made my weapons into tools for their victory. But how could they coordinate such complex maneuvers? Prime Intellect Corinth asked. Because they think like a single organism when they need to, but each part of that organism can adapt and improvise independently, Zephyros replied. It was like fighting a creature with 73 brains, all thinking different thoughts but working toward the same goal. And, when it was over, he continued, they did not destroy my remaining ships. They did not capture me for interrogation. They did not demand tribute or territory. What did they do? They thanked me for taking good care of their people, offered to provide medical assistance to my injured crew, and politely requested that I avoid their territory in the future. The representatives stared at him in disbelief. That was when I realized, Zephyros said, that they had not been trying to defeat me. They had been trying to rescue their people with minimal casualties on both sides. The complete destruction of my fleet was just an unfortunate necessity. They felt bad about destroying you? Ambassador Sylphan asked incredulously. They felt bad about the crew members I lost because of my poor decision to threaten their people, Zephyros corrected. To them, the battle was not about proving superiority or claiming territory. It was about bringing their friends home safely. And, when they accomplished that goal, the conflict was over. The implications were staggering. Warchief Fracas struggled to understand. They did not press their advantage? They did not demand your surrender? They had no interest in conquering me, Zephyros explained. They just wanted me to stop threatening their people. Once I agreed to do that, they had everything they wanted. But they had defeated you completely, High Chancellor Viridian pointed out. They could have demanded anything. They asked for exactly what they had wanted from the beginning, for their people to be safe and for future conflicts to be avoided, Zephyros replied. Nothing more, nothing less. He paused, looking around the chamber. That is when I understood that humans are not conquerors like me. They do not fight to build empires or prove their superiority. They fight to protect what they care about. And, once that is accomplished, they prefer to return to building, creating, and exploring. Which makes them even more dangerous than conquerors, he continued. Because they have no interest in ruling you, no desire to exploit you, and no need to prove their dominance over you. They simply want to be left alone to pursue their own goals. How does that make them more dangerous? Ambassador Sylphan asked. Because if you threaten them, they will remove the threat with maximum efficiency and minimum resources, then go back to whatever they were doing before, Zephyros explained. They will not waste time bloating, they will not make demands, and they will not give you opportunities to negotiate or manipulate them. They will simply solve the problem you represent and move on. The truth of this settled over the assembly like a weight. These were not enemies who could be reasoned with through shows of force or impressed by demonstrations of power. These were problem solvers who would treat any threat as a puzzle to be solved. Prime Intellect Corintha's brain pulsed rapidly. You make them sound almost mechanical in their approach. No, Zephyros replied. They are not mechanical. They are purposeful. Every action serves a goal. Every goal serves a purpose. And every purpose serves something they care about. Which brings us back to my warning, he continued. Do not hunt them. Do not threaten them. Do not attack them. Do not interfere with them. Because if you do, you become a problem that needs to be solved. And humans are very, very good at solving problems. High Chancellor Viridian's energy form flickered with resignation. What if contact is inevitable? What if they expand into our territories not as conquerors, but as explorers? Then, you welcome them, Zephyros said simply. You trade with them. You learn from them. You cooperate with them. You make them your allies instead of your enemies. And, if they threaten us? Warchief Thrakus asked. They will not threaten you unless you threaten them first, Zephyros replied. But, if you do threaten them, then, you have already lost. The chamber fell into contemplative silence. The Council of Stars, rulers of the galaxy for 1,000 years, were being forced to reconsider everything they thought they knew about power, conflict, and survival. Ambassador Sylphan finally spoke. Zephyros, why do you warn us? What do you gain from this? Zephyros looked at her with his 4 red eyes, and, for the first time since entering the chamber, something resembling emotion crossed his features. Because, he said slowly, I do not want to see the galaxy make the same mistake I did. I do not want to see civilizations that have existed for millennia destroyed because they underestimated a species that measures its existence in mere thousands of years. And, because, he continued, I believe the galaxy would be better with humans in it than without them. They create things that inspire. They solve problems that seem impossible. They care about the future in ways that most species do not. But, only if they are allowed to do these things in peace. He turned to leave, then, stopped at the chamber entrance. Remember my warning, Council of Stars. The humans are coming, whether you invite them or not. Whether they arrive as friends or enemies depends entirely on how you treat them when they get here. Choose wisely. With that, Zephyros the Destroyer, the most feared being in the galaxy, walked out of the council chambers, leaving behind a room full of leaders who suddenly felt very small and very vulnerable. The discussion that followed would last for days. But, the warning had been given, and the choice was now theirs to make. In the depths of space, human ships continued their exploration of the galaxy, their crews unaware that their arrival had been foretold by a legend, their reputation preceding them through the warnings of the most dangerous predator the galaxy had ever known. They came not as conquerors, but as explorers. Not as destroyers, but as builders. Not as enemies, but as the species that could become either the galaxy's greatest allies or its ultimate nightmare. The choice, as Zephyros had said, was entirely up to those who would meet them first. 3 months after Zephyros delivered his warning to the Council of Stars, the human exploration vessel UES Endeavour dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Kepler 442 system. Captain Sarah Chen stood on the bridge, watching the star charts update as her ship's sensors mapped the local space. Anything interesting, Commander Park? She asked her science officer. Commander David Park looked up from his console, excitement clear in his voice. Captain, we're detecting artificial structures around the 4th planet. Definitely not natural formations. I'm reading multiple space stations, orbital platforms, and what looks like a significant ship presence. Captain Chen nodded calmly. After 2 years of deep space exploration, the crew of the Endeavour had become accustomed to discovering evidence of alien civilizations. This was their 7th star system showing signs of intelligent life, though they had yet to make direct contact with any species. Any signs that they've detected us? She asked. Lieutenant Maria Santos, the communications officer, shook her head. Nothing yet, Captain. No directed scans, no attempts to communicate. They might not have faster-than-light sensors. Or they might be deciding how to respond, Captain Chen replied. Let's not assume anything. Take us in slowly. Passive sensors only until we have a better idea of what we're dealing with. The Endeavour was not a warship, though like all human deep space vessels, it was well armed. Humanity's first ventures beyond their solar system had taught them that the galaxy was not always friendly to explorers. The ship's primary mission was scientific exploration and first contact protocols, but its crew was prepared for various contingencies. On the 4th planet of the Kepler 442 system, in the capital city of the hegemony of Korthak, alarms were already sounding. Supreme Commander Vextai of the Korthak military stood in the central command chamber, his reptilian features twisted with concern as he studied the holographic displays surrounding him. The Korthok were a proud warrior species, descended from apex predators on their homeworld. Standing 8 feet tall with armored scales, razor-sharp claws, and enhanced strength, they had dominated their region of space for centuries through military superiority and aggressive expansion. Report, Vextai demanded, his voice a harsh rasp. Unknown vessel detected at the system's edge, reported intelligence officer Nexgore. Configuration unknown. Technology appears to be faster than light capable, but the energy signatures don't match any known species. Size and armament? Vextai asked. Approximately 600 meters in length. Detecting multiple weapon systems, but nothing that appears to exceed our defensive capabilities. The ship appears to be alone. Vextai's claws scraped against the metal console as he considered this information. The Korthak had built their empire by striking first and asking questions later. Lone ships entering their territory were either destroyed or captured for interrogation and study. Recommendations, he asked his staff. Standard protocol, replied War Master Theklan. Deploy a capture squadron. If they resist, destroy them. If they surrender, bring them in for interrogation. Vextai nodded. This was how the Korthak had always handled unknown contacts. Their military doctrine was simple: anything that entered their space either belonged to them or was destroyed. Deploy Squadron 7, he ordered. Capture if possible, destroy if necessary. 30 minutes later, 12 Korthak interceptors dropped out of faster-than-light travel in a standard attack formation around the human vessel. Each interceptor was heavily armed and shielded, designed to overwhelm enemies through coordinated assault. On the bridge of the Endeavour, alerts immediately began sounding. Captain! Lieutenant Santos called out urgently. Multiple contacts dropping out of FTL around us. 12 vessels in attack formation. Any communication attempts? Captain Chen asked, her voice remaining calm despite the sudden escalation. Nothing, ma'am. But their positioning and movements suggest hostile intent. Captain Chen quickly assessed the situation. The alien vessels had appeared in a perfect encirclement pattern, weapons powered and shields raised. This was clearly not a greeting party. Hail them on all frequencies, she ordered. Standard first contact protocols. Lieutenant Santos worked at her console for several seconds. No response to any communication attempts, Captain. They're maintaining attack formation and closing distance. Commander Park, analysis of their vessels? Technology appears roughly equivalent to ours, maybe slightly behind, Park reported. 12 ships versus 1, but they're smaller and appear to be light combat vessels rather than heavy warships. Captain Chen made her decision. Red alert. Shields up, weapons powered but not targeted. We defend ourselves if attacked, but we do not fire first. Continue hailing them. This was exactly the situation that human first contact protocols had been designed for: contact with an apparently hostile species that had not yet actually attacked. The guidelines were clear: avoid conflict if possible, but protect the ship and crew if necessary. In the lead Korthak interceptor, Squadron Commander Haskath watched the human vessel on his tactical display. The alien ship had raised defensive screens and powered weapons, but had not targeted them or made any aggressive moves. They're not surrendering, reported his weapons officer. They're not attacking either, Haskath observed. Perhaps they're trying to communicate. Standing orders are clear, his second-in-command reminded him. Unknown vessels are to be captured or destroyed. Haskath nodded reluctantly. He was a soldier, and he followed orders. Target their engines and weapons systems. Disable the ship for capture. As the Korthak vessels moved into final attack position, Lieutenant Santos suddenly looked up from her console. Captain! I'm detecting a massive energy surge from all 12 ships. They're preparing to fire. Captain Chen's training took over. Evasive maneuvers. Return fire, target their weapons systems. Try to disable rather than destroy. The spacer on Kepler 442 erupted into chaos as the first battle between humans and an alien species began. The Korthak had expected a quick, decisive engagement. Their standard tactics had always worked before: overwhelm the enemy with coordinated fire, disable their ship, and capture the survivors for interrogation. What they had not expected was how the humans would respond. The Endeavour moved like nothing the Korthak had ever encountered. Instead of trying to flee or forming a defensive position, the human ship accelerated directly toward the largest concentration of attackers while simultaneously rotating to present its most heavily armored sections to incoming fire. The ship's point defense systems created a cone of destruction in front of it, intercepting incoming projectiles and energy blasts with frightening efficiency. Meanwhile, its main weapons fired with surgical precision, targeting not the Korthak ships themselves, but specific subsystems on each vessel. Within 30 seconds of the engagement beginning, 4 Korthak interceptors found their weapons disabled. 2 more lost their shields. 1 suffered engine damage that sent it spinning out of control. Impossible. Squadron Commander Haskath stared at his tactical display in disbelief. How are they tracking all of us simultaneously? The answer would have surprised him. The Endeavour's combat systems were not designed around overwhelming firepower or impenetrable defenses. They were designed around information processing and coordination. The ship's artificial intelligence could track hundreds of targets simultaneously, predict their movements based on observed behavior patterns, and coordinate defensive and offensive systems within human precision. More importantly, the human combat doctrine emphasized ending conflicts as quickly as possible with minimal casualties on both sides. Every shot the Endeavour fired was calculated to disable rather than destroy, to remove threats without killing the beings who posed them. Captain, Commander Park reported, "We've disabled 7 of the 12 vessels. The remaining 5 are withdrawing to a safe distance." "Any casualties on our side?" Captain Chen asked. "Minimal damage to hull plating. No injuries reported." "And, on their side?" "Unknown, but our targeting systems focused on disabling shots. Likely some injuries from system failures, but probably no fatalities." Captain Chen nodded with satisfaction. This was exactly how first contact with a hostile species was supposed to go according to human protocols: demonstrate superior capability while minimizing harm to potential future allies. "Any response to our communication attempts?" "Still nothing, ma'am." On the Korthak command ship, Supreme Commander Vextai stared at the tactical reports in stunned silence. Squadron 7 had been defeated without destroying a single enemy vessel. The unknown aliens had demonstrated combat capabilities that far exceeded their own while apparently holding back their full firepower. "Analysis," he demanded. "Their ship appears to be designed for multi-target engagement," War Master Theclon reported. "Their weapons systems show remarkable precision and their defensive systems are unlike anything in our databases. Could we defeat them with larger numbers?" Intelligence Officer Nexgor studied the combat data. "Unknown, but unlikely. Their advantage appears to be in coordination and information processing rather than raw firepower. Adding more ships might just give them more targets." Vextai's claws scraped against his armor as he considered the implications. The Korthak military had built its reputation on quick, overwhelming victories. They were not prepared for enemies who could match their technology while surpassing their tactics. "What are they doing now?" he asked. "Maintaining position near the disabled vessels. They appear to be scanning them." On the bridge of the Endeavour, Captain Chen was indeed studying the alien vessels. "Any life signs on the damaged ships?" "All show active life support," Commander Park reported. "I'm detecting what appear to be distress signals from 2 of them." "Can we render assistance?" "Possibly, but we'd need to get closer. And we don't know if they'll interpret that as another attack." Captain Chen considered her options. The aliens had attacked without provocation, but they had also withdrawn when outmatched rather than fighting to the death. This suggested they might be reasonable once they understood the situation. "Open a channel." "All frequencies." Lieutenant Santos nodded. "Channel open, ma'am. Attention alien vessels. This is Captain Sarah Chen of the human exploration ship Endeavour. We detect damage to several of your ships and possible casualties. We offer assistance to any vessel in distress. We did not seek this conflict and wish to resolve it peacefully. The message was repeated in several human languages and accompanied by mathematical progressions and scientific constants that should be recognizable to any spacefaring species. In the Korthak Command Center, the alien transmission was causing significant confusion. They're offering to help our damaged ships? War Master Theclon asked in disbelief. After we attacked them? The translation systems are having difficulty with their language, but that appears to be the message, Intelligence Officer Nexgor confirmed. Supreme Commander Vextai studied the tactical display. The human ship maintained a defensive position but showed no signs of pressing its attack. Instead, it was slowly moving toward the most badly damaged Korthak vessel. This makes no tactical sense, he muttered. They should either destroy us completely or demand our surrender. Why offer assistance? Unknown to Vextai, he was encountering human military philosophy for the first time. Humans had learned through centuries of warfare that enemies could become allies, that defeated foes who were treated with respect were less likely to seek revenge, and that demonstrating mercy from a position of strength often accomplished more than demonstrations of ruthless power. On one of the damaged Korthak interceptors, the crew was struggling with multiple system failures. Engine coolant was leaking, life support was operating on backup power, and their communications were down. Life support will fail in approximately 2 hours, the ship's engineer reported to Commander Haskath. Can we signal for rescue? Negative. Communication systems are down. Haskath watched through the viewport as the human vessel approached. According to everything he had been taught about warfare, the aliens should be moving in to finish off the disabled ships. Instead, they appeared to be conducting rescue operations. Commander, his weapons officer called out, the alien ship is hailing us on emergency frequencies. Put it through. The voice that emerged from their speakers was calm and professional. Korthak vessel, this is Captain Chen of the human ship Endeavor. We detect critical failures in your life support systems. Do you require assistance? Haskath stared at the communication console in amazement. Not only were the aliens offering help, they had somehow learned enough of the Korthak language during the brief battle to communicate in it. How did they learn our language so quickly? His second-in-command whispered. Unknown, Haskath replied. He made a decision that would change the course of galactic history. Human vessel, this is Squadron Commander Haskath. We accept your offer of assistance. Over the next several hours, human engineering teams worked alongside Korthak crews to repair the damaged interceptors. The cultural exchange that took place during these rescue operations was unlike anything either species had experienced before. The Korthak were amazed by human technical knowledge and problem-solving abilities. Human engineers didn't just fix the damaged systems, they improved them, making them more efficient and reliable than they had been originally. More surprisingly to the Korthak, the humans showed genuine concern for injured crew members, providing medical assistance and ensuring that every Korthak sailor returned to their ship in better condition than they had been in before the battle. The humans, meanwhile, were fascinated by Korthak engineering and military organization. Despite their aggressive first contact, the Korthak proved to be professional soldiers with a strong sense of honor and loyalty to their comrades. Your species is very different from what we expected, Squadron Commander Haskath told Captain Chen as they met aboard the Endeavor to coordinate repairs. What did you expect? She asked. Conquerors. Slavers. Most species that enter our territory come seeking to exploit our resources or subjugate our people. Captain Chen nodded thoughtfully. We're explorers and scientists. We come seeking knowledge and potential allies, not conquest. Yet you defeated our squadron easily. If you had wanted to conquer us, we could not have stopped you. We have no interest in conquering anyone, Captain Chen replied. We prefer cooperation to conflict whenever possible. This conversation was being monitored by Supreme Commander Vextai, who was struggling to understand the human perspective. Every species the Korthak had encountered operated according to the same basic principles: the strong dominated the weak, conflict was resolved through force, and might made right. The humans appeared to operate according to entirely different principles, and their superior technology suggested that these principles were not a sign of weakness. War Master, Vextai said to his aide, "What do you make of these humans?" "They are unlike any species in our database," Theclon replied. "Their technology is advanced, their military tactics are sophisticated, but they seem to prefer cooperation to conquest. Are they a threat to the hegemony?" Theclon considered this carefully. "Not unless we make them one. But if we did make them a threat." "Yes? I believe they would be the most dangerous enemy we have ever faced." Supreme Commander Vextai made a decision that surprised everyone in the command center. "Open a channel to the human ship." When the connection was established, Captain Chen's image appeared on the main screen. Vextai stood and performed the traditional Korthak gesture of respect between equals. "Captain Chen, I am Supreme Commander Vextai of the Korthak hegemony. I wish to apologize for the unprovoked attack on your vessel. Our standing orders regarding unknown ships entering our territory led to unnecessary conflict." Captain Chen returned the gesture as best she could. "Apology accepted, Supreme Commander. We understand that our unexpected arrival might have been seen as threatening. We should have attempted to establish communications before entering your space. You are welcome in Korthak space, Captain Chen. Would you consider visiting our homeworld as our guests? Our leadership would be very interested in establishing formal diplomatic relations with your species." This was the moment that human first contact protocols had been designed for. Captain Chen smiled. "We would be honored, Supreme Commander." The news that the Korthak hegemony had not only failed to destroy or capture the human vessel, but had instead established diplomatic relations with them, spread quickly through the galactic communication networks. On the Council Station, High Chancellor Viridian received the report with a mixture of relief and concern. Zephyros's warning was already proving accurate. The humans had demonstrated superior combat capabilities while showing remarkable restraint and diplomatic skill. "What are your thoughts?" she asked Prime Intellect Corinth. "The Korthak are known for their aggressive first contact protocols," Corinth replied. "The fact that they not only failed to defeat a single human ship but then invited them as diplomatic guests suggests that humans exceeded even Zephyros's estimates of their capabilities." Ambassador Silthan was studying the combat reports. "The humans could have destroyed the entire Korthak squadron but chose to disable and rescue instead. This suggests that Zephyros was correct about their nature. They fight only to protect themselves, not to conquer. Which means they are exactly as dangerous as he said they would be," Warchief Thrakus added grimly. "An enemy that can defeat you completely but chooses not to is an enemy that controls the terms of all future interactions." High Chancellor Viridian made a decision. "Send a message to all Council member species. Share Zephyros's warning and these combat reports. Recommend that all first contact protocols with humans emphasize diplomacy and cooperation." "What about species that might not listen to this recommendation?" Ambassador Silthan asked. Viridian's energy form flickered with concern. "Then, we may soon see what happens when humans are forced to solve more serious problems." In the depths of space, the UES Endeavour followed a Korthak escort toward the homeworld of the hegemony. Captain Chen stood on the bridge, reviewing the cultural briefings that her team had compiled during their initial interactions with Squadron Commander Hesketh. "Thoughts, Commander Park?" she asked. "They're a warrior culture, but they have a strong sense of honor," Park replied. "Their initial attack appears to have been standard procedure rather than personal hostility. Now that they understand we're not invaders, they seem genuinely interested in peaceful relations." "Any concerns about visiting their homeworld?" "Only the usual ones for first contact situations. We'll be vastly outnumbered on an alien world. But their behavior so far suggests they can be trusted." Captain Chen nodded. This was exactly the kind of situation that humanity had hoped to encounter in their exploration of the galaxy, contact with advanced civilizations that could become allies rather than enemies. What she didn't know was that her ship's arrival at the Korthak homeworld would set off a chain of events that would reshape galactic politics forever. Word of the humans was spreading to every corner of known space. Some species, heeding Zephyros's warning and the Council's recommendations, were preparing diplomatic protocols for potential human contact. Others, however, were making very different preparations. In the Nexus Empire, a coalition of 12 species that had built their power through conquest and exploitation, military planners were studying the reports from Korthak space with great interest. 12 disabled ships against one enemy vessel, General Korvax of the Saurian military caste observed. Either the Korthak have grown weak, or these humans represent a significant military threat. The Korthak are not weak, replied Admiral Fexera of the Crystalline Navy. Which means the humans are dangerous. All the more reason to eliminate them before they become a larger threat, suggested Colonel Vextios of the Mechanoid Forces. The Nexus Empire had built its power by identifying emerging threats and destroying them before they could challenge the existing order. They had crushed dozens of species this way, always striking before their enemies could fully develop their potential. The humans appeared to be exactly the kind of threat that required preemptive elimination. Begin mobilization of the Fifth Fleet, General Korvax ordered. Prepare for a strike against the human homeworld. What about the Council of Stars' recommendations regarding diplomatic contact? Admiral Fexera asked. The Council has grown soft, Korvax replied. They counsel negotiation with threats that should be eliminated. We will not make that mistake. This decision would prove to be one of the most catastrophic mistakes in galactic history. As the Nexus Empire began mobilizing its forces for war against humanity, the UES Endeavour entered orbit around the Korthak homeworld. Captain Chen and her diplomatic team prepared for the first formal contact between humans and an alien government. Neither she nor the Korthak leadership had any idea that their successful diplomatic encounter was about to trigger a much larger and more dangerous conflict. In the outer reaches of the galaxy, other human exploration vessels continued their missions, unaware that first contact had already been achieved. The crew of the UES Endeavour was about to learn that not all alien species were as reasonable as the Korthak. And the galaxy was about to learn why Zephyros the Destroyer had been so insistent in his warning. On Earth, in the headquarters of the United Earth Space Command, Fleet Admiral Jackson Chen, Sarah's father, was reviewing reports from the exploration fleets when the first message from the Endeavour arrived. Contact achieved with alien species. Diplomatic relations established. Proceeding to formal first contact protocols. Admiral Chen smiled with pride. His daughter had accomplished what humanity had dreamed of for generations: peaceful contact with an alien civilization. He had no way of knowing that within days, he would be mobilizing humanity's entire military fleet for the first interstellar war in human history. The warning that Zephyros had given to the Council of Stars was about to be tested in the most direct way possible. And the galaxy would learn whether the most feared predator in known space had been right to fear a species that measured its existence in mere thousands of years. The age of human isolation was over. The age of galactic politics was about to begin. And some species were about to learn exactly why one should never hunt humans. The attack on Sol came without warning. Admiral Jackson Chen was in his office reviewing reports from the exploration fleets when every alarm in United Earth Space Command headquarters began sounding simultaneously. He rushed to the command center where the duty officer, Captain Williams, was coordinating responses to what appeared to be impossible sensor readings. Report! Admiral Chen barked as he entered the room. Sir, we have multiple faster-than-light signatures dropping out of hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system, Captain Williams replied, her voice tight with tension. Initial count shows over 2,000 vessels. Admiral Chen stared at the tactical display in disbelief. The largest human fleet ever assembled contained fewer than 300 ships. Classification? Unknown configurations, sir. Technology appears advanced. They're maintaining attack formations and... Admiral, they're moving directly toward Earth. The implications hit Admiral Chen like a physical blow. An alien fleet more than 6 times larger than anything humanity could deploy was approaching Earth in battle formation. This was not a diplomatic mission. Any communication attempts? Negative, sir. They're not responding to any hails on any frequency. Admiral Chen's mind raced through the possibilities. Sarah's ship had made contact with aliens just 2 weeks ago. The encounter had been peaceful, even friendly. These could not be the same species. General quarters throughout the system, he ordered. Deploy all available vessels in defensive formations. And, get me a priority communication to the Endeavour. What Admiral Chen didn't know was that the Nexus Empire had moved with unprecedented speed and coordination. Within hours of receiving reports about human capabilities, they had assembled the largest military fleet in galactic history specifically to eliminate what they saw as an emerging threat. General Korvax stood on the bridge of the flagship Dominator, studying the tactical displays that showed the human home system. His 12-species coalition had brought together the most powerful military forces in known space for this single operation. Analysis, he demanded. The humans have approximately 280 vessels in system, reported Intelligence Coordinator Vextal. Mix of military and civilian craft. Technology appears consistent with reports from Korthak Space. Defensive capabilities? Unknown, but, based on their performance against the Korthak, we should assume significant point defense and electronic warfare capabilities. General Korvax nodded with satisfaction. The Nexus Empire had learned from the Korthak's mistake of underestimating human capabilities. Instead of sending a small squadron, they had brought overwhelming force. No matter how advanced human technology might be, they could not possibly stand against odds of 7 to 1. Deploy in standard extermination formation, he ordered. Eliminate all military vessels first, then, destroy the orbital infrastructure. Leave the planetary bombardment platforms for last. I want the humans to watch their civilization die before we kill them. This decision would prove to be the second worst mistake in the Empire's history. The first had been deciding to attack humans in the first place. In the Sol system, Admiral Chen was coordinating humanity's defense when the alien fleet's intentions became clear. Long-range scans showed the massive formation splitting into attack groups, each one targeting specific human installations. Admiral, Captain Williams called out urgently, we're detecting massive energy buildups from the alien fleet. They're preparing to engage. All ships, this is Admiral Chen, he broadcast on the fleet-wide channel. We are facing an unprovoked attack on our homeworld. Execute Protocol 7. I repeat, execute Protocol 7. Protocol 7 was humanity's last resort defense plan, developed during the paranoid years following first contact with potentially hostile alien life. Every human ship in the system would coordinate as a single fleet, using every technological advantage they possessed to buy time for Earth's evacuation. What the Nexus Empire didn't understand was that humans had spent the past 50 years preparing for exactly this scenario. When humanity had first achieved faster-than-light travel, they had made certain assumptions about the galaxy they were entering. They had assumed they would not be the most advanced species. They had assumed they would face hostile contacts. And, they had assumed that when those contacts came, humans would be outnumbered. Human military doctrine had been built around these assumptions. The battle began when the first Nexus Empire attack group opened fire on the human outer perimeter. What they expected was a quick, decisive engagement where superior numbers would overwhelm human defenses. What they got was unlike anything in their military experience. Human ships didn't fight like anything the Empire had encountered before. Instead of forming battle lines or defensive formations, they moved in complex, seemingly random patterns that made them nearly impossible to target effectively. Each human vessel was networked to every other through quantum communication systems, allowing the entire fleet to operate with perfect coordination. When Empire ships fired at where a human vessel was, they found empty space. The target had moved based on sensor data from ships hundreds of thousands of kilometers away. Meanwhile, human weapons fire was devastatingly precise. Instead of trying to destroy Empire ships outright, human vessels targeted specific systems, weapons, shields, engines, life support. Within minutes, dozens of Empire vessels found themselves crippled and drifting. Impossible. General Korvax stared at his tactical displays as his overwhelming advantage evaporated before his eyes. How are they coordinating so precisely? How are they tracking all our ships simultaneously? Unknown, sir, replied Admiral Fexera. Their information processing capabilities appear to exceed our projections by several orders of magnitude. The truth was that human military technology had evolved differently than most galactic species. Where others had focused on more powerful weapons or stronger shields, humans had focused on information, coordination, and precision. Every human ship was equipped with artificial intelligence systems that could process vast amounts of sensor data and coordinate with similar systems across the entire fleet. The result was that the human fleet fought like a single organism with hundreds of eyes and dozens of weapons, each part aware of everything happening around it and able to respond instantly to threats or opportunities. Sir, Admiral Fexera reported with growing alarm, we've lost over 300 ships and haven't destroyed a single human vessel. General Korvax's claws scraped against his command console. Deploy the reserve squadrons. Overwhelm them with numbers. This was exactly the wrong response, and it played directly into human tactical doctrine. The more ships the Empire committed to the battle, the more targets the human fleet had to work with. Human tactical AI had been designed to handle massive multi-target engagements, turning the enemy's numbers into a disadvantage. As the reserve squadrons entered the battle, the human fleet's behavior changed. Instead of defensive maneuvering, they went on the offensive, diving into the largest enemy formations and systematically disabling ships with surgical precision. On Earth, Admiral Chen watched the battle unfold with a mixture of pride and growing concern. The human fleet was performing brilliantly, but the math was unavoidable, they were still outnumbered by enormous margins. Sir, Captain Williams reported, we're receiving a priority transmission from the Endeavour. Put it through. Sarah's face appeared on the main screen, her expression grim. Dad, we're detecting massive fleet movements throughout Nexus Empire space. The force attacking Sol appears to be just the first wave. Admiral Chen felt his heart sink. How many more ships are they bringing? Conservative estimate? 5,000. Maybe more. The command center fell silent. Even if the human fleet achieved perfect exchange rates, they could not survive an assault by 5,000 enemy vessels. There's more, Sarah continued. The Korthak have offered to send their fleet to assist us. And, the Council of Stars is demanding that the Empire withdraw immediately. How long before the second wave arrives? 18 hours at most. Admiral Chen made the hardest decision of his military career. All ships, this is Admiral Chen. We are evacuating the Sol system. All civilian vessels are to proceed immediately to the Alpha Centauri colony. Military vessels will provide covering fire. This was Protocol 8, the complete abandonment of humanity's homeworld in the face of overwhelming enemy force. General Korvax watched the human fleet begin to disengage with satisfaction. They're retreating. Deploy pursuit squadrons. Do not let any vessel escape. This command would prove to be the Empire's greatest mistake yet. Humans had been planning for evacuation scenarios for decades, and they had learned important lessons from their own history about fighting retreats. The most important lesson was that a retreating force that couldn't be defeated was more dangerous than a stationary force that could be surrounded. As the human fleet began moving toward the edge of the system with their civilian convoy, they didn't simply run. They fought a running battle that demonstrated human military innovation at its finest. Human ships had been designed with modular weapons systems that could be jettisoned and left behind as automated defense platforms. As the fleet retreated, they scattered thousands of these platforms throughout the system, creating a network of obstacles that Empire ships had to navigate carefully. Each platform was equipped with artificial intelligence sophisticated enough to coordinate with nearby platforms and choose targets based on tactical priorities. The Empire forces found themselves under constant fire from multiple directions by enemies they couldn't locate or predict. More importantly, the platforms were learning. Human AI had been designed to analyze enemy tactics in real time and adapt accordingly. Each engagement provided data that was instantly shared throughout the network. By the time the Empire forces had fought through the first line of defense platforms, the second line had already adapted to counter their tactics. Sir, Admiral Fexera reported with growing frustration, we're taking significant casualties from these automated defenses. Our ships are being disabled faster than we can advance. How is this possible? General Korvax demanded. They're just stationary weapons platforms. They appear to be learning from our attacks and modifying their tactics accordingly, Intelligence Coordinator Vextal explained. Each platform has access to the combat experience of every other platform in the network. General Korvax stared at the tactical display in disbelief. The humans had turned their retreat into one of the most effective defensive actions he had ever witnessed. The Empire fleet was suffering thousands of casualties while failing to destroy a single human civilian vessel. Commit all reserves, he ordered desperately. Push through regardless of casualties. This decision sealed the Empire's fate. When the second wave of Empire forces arrived 18 hours later, they found the Sol system transformed into a massive graveyard. Over 1,500 Empire ships had been destroyed or disabled by the human defense network. The human fleet and civilian convoy had successfully evacuated to Alpha Centauri. But, more importantly, every engagement had been recorded, analyzed, and transmitted to human military command. Admiral Chen stood in the temporary command center on Proxima Station, studying the tactical analysis from the Sol battle. The data was staggering. Human forces had achieved exchange rates that should have been impossible, destroying or disabling 5 Empire ships for every human casualty. Recommendations, he asked his staff. The Empire forces are large but poorly coordinated, reported General Martinez, the human ground forces commander. Their tactics are predictable and they don't adapt well to unexpected situations. More importantly, added Admiral Thompson, the fleet tactical coordinator, they've just provided us with complete technical specifications for over 24 alien military technologies. Our engineering teams are already developing countermeasures. Admiral Chen nodded grimly. And our fleet status? All surviving ships have been refitted with upgraded systems based on captured Empire technology. We've also received reinforcements from the Korthak 37 heavy cruisers with crews trained in human tactical doctrine. Time to offensive operations? Admiral Thompson smiled. We're ready now, sir. This was the moment that the galaxy would learn the most important lesson about humans: they adapted faster than any other species in known space. The human military doctrine was built around the concept of rapid technological and tactical evolution. Every engagement provided data that was immediately analyzed and used to improve weapons, defenses, and strategies. Humans didn't just learn from their mistakes, they learned from their enemies' tactics and turned them into advantages. Begin Operation Homecoming, Admiral Chen ordered. What happened next would be studied in military academies for centuries to come. The human counterattack began with a coordinated strike against Empire forces in the Sol system. The second wave of Empire ships expected to find a defenseless system ready for conquest. Instead, they found themselves facing a fleet that had learned everything about Empire tactics from the previous battle. Human ships appeared throughout the system using faster-than-light jump tactics that the Empire had never seen before. Instead of dropping out of hyperspace at the system edge like conventional fleets, human vessels materialized directly in the middle of Empire formations. The improved human fleet was equipped with weapon systems that had been specifically designed to counter Empire technology. Their shields had been recalibrated to resist Empire energy weapons. Their sensors had been upgraded to penetrate Empire stealth systems. Their weapons had been optimized to target Empire vulnerable points. But the most devastating human innovation was tactical. Human military planners had studied every engagement from the first battle and identified patterns in Empire behavior. They had learned that Empire forces relied heavily on standard formations, predictable tactics, and overwhelming numbers. The human response was to make all of these advantages into disadvantages. Human ships attacked in small, independent groups that appeared and disappeared unpredictably. Each group had complete tactical flexibility and could coordinate instantly with other groups anywhere in the system. Empire forces found themselves fighting dozens of separate battles simultaneously, unable to bring their numerical advantage to bear effectively. More importantly, humans had learned to think like the Empire commanders.